Hey, welcome everybody to Yerushalmi Megillah Daf Daled, and we're at the very top of the Yamid. A little bit of a continuation from yesterday's sugya. What we said, Rabbi Yossi said, right? Avkan be'asel ishtakeya. We said that over here we're talking about this kan be'asel ishtakeya mohen when he's planning to stay there. And he said then he adapts to minhagim of where he happens to be, the krach or the ear. Rabbi Yossi, who actually argues on Rabbi Yossi. So over here, we're going to go with the carbonated pshat. Over here is that we're talking about where he says you don't have to be there permanently. In other words, Rabbi Yossi had said you have to be there permanently if you're planning to be there permanently. So then you adapt to the hagim of where you are. He says no. The carbonator says no. Elakol shein daiter shel ben ir lotzis. I'm just reading from the carbonator. He says elakol shein daiter shel ben ir lotzis min akrach belel tezvav kodem sheher mizrach. So he's not planning to leave the krachim, and krachim again read on tezvav. He's planning to be there leil tezvav. Have a mukaf lo yom of a tezvav. So he's considered to be a ben krach. And he reads on the 15th, and vice versa also, v'chein ben krach, emein daitoi, lotzis me'ir kodem shior mizrach biyadal. So he happens to be in an ear, which reads again on the 14th, and the ben krach is now in the ear on the 14th. He's not leaving. So he's considered to be a pruzli yoim. In other words, he's considered to be ben ear for that day. And his chiv the chiv to read would be on Yud Dalit. So the difference between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi says you don't have to settle there. Reb Nachman by Yaakov If you tell me that if the question is where you plan to be, he says that's what Reb Yosef said, right? It's where you plan to be when it's Heira Mizrach, right? At Zricha in the morning. So if that's the case, somebody who's mal, he's a ger, he's mal after Sheia Mizrach, Kvar Niftis, he's somebody's potter for the rest of the day, not mistab to say such a thing. Rabban Bar Chiyaboy Ben Irsha Oka Dirosi. In other words, just going back to Rav Nachman Yaakov for a second, just the Gemara just saying that doesn't sound like we should hold that it depends where you are when it's Heira Mizrach. In other words, the question is you have all day to do. We don't go just by Heira Mizrach. If the Ger would, just because he missed Zricha doesn't mean he doesn't have the rest of the day to make up for it. Okay. Rabban Bar Chiyaboy Ben Ir Sha'oka Dirosei Leil Chamishas and is Chayiv Kan V'Kan. So you have a Ben Ir who is moving to a krach, right? So now he moved out on the 15th. So what happened? So since he's a Ben Ir, he moved out on the 15th. Makes sense to say if he moved the 15th, he must have read on the 14th. How about what about you have the other way around? So he decided he's moving the 14th. So you tell me now, but he's not getting to his destination until the 15th. So therefore now he's not going to read anywhere, right? Okay, again, not mistaba to say that. Ben Ir Maushi Yotzi Ben Krach. How about this, Shaila? Again, these answers we're not giving answers on this. The Gemara is not addressing these questions with an answer, just pointing out certain, call it questions. Ben Ir, Mao Hu Sheyotzi Ben Krach. Can a Ben Ir be Moitzi Ben Krach? Yidei Chavase on the 15th. Right, so the Ben Ir again lands on the 14th. Can you Moitzi Ben Krach lands on the 15th? You have a Gadol, Kol Shinechai Bedover, any Moitzi Sarabim. Yedei Choy Vasan. And since the Ben Ir is not mechuyev to read on the 15th, and it says Lo Yavor, as mashmos is only people who read on the 15th read on the 15th. But if your mitzvah is on the 14th, you shouldn't be reading on the 15th. Therefore, he's not considered mechuyev, and he cannot be moitzi a Ben Krach. How about vice versa? Ben Krach, Mao Shiotis Ben Ir, Yedei Chavasi on the 14th. Let's say a Ben Krach, he's the only guy that knows the lane to Megillah, and he happens to be in the year. Can he be out on the 14th? So the Gemara says, yeah, because so the Gemara says like this, yeah, but Kadoko Shinei Chai Bedover, and the Gemara says, Esser Rabin Dei Chavos. Do I say, just like I said by the Ben Ir to Ben Krach, we say the vice versa also. In other words, that the Ben Krach, his mitzvah is not on the 14th, this is on the 15th. So maybe he can't be moitzi. Or Yevek Kahi, the Amar Reb Chel by Reb Chuna, B'Shem Reb Chia Rabbo, Hakol Yotzim Abasa, Shuzman Kriyasa. That no, maybe we say that he could be moitzi then, because everybody, the mitzvah really for everybody is also on the 14th. Okay. Reb Yudenboy, Ben Ishanas and Daiti Laka di Rasoi, Leile, Chamisha Asa. If you have a Ben here who decided to move on the night of the 15th, what do you do in right? What do you do in that case? Does he, right? So since he's a Ben here and he's moving out in the 15th, so you say, well, he's planning to be in the Krach. He's planning to be in the Krach. His day is the 15th. But he was in the city, he was in the year on the 14th. But since he has a mind to move, what would be that halacha? So Gemara says, understand, I must need to he. We saw the Mishnah. Ben Ir Shalach Likrach. And it says over there, he adapts their minhagim. So no. Must need to be Shahoya Bikrach. He was already there. Hey, where? Matzrichale, what our suffix is Kishahoya Be'ir. He's in the city, and then we want to know. Fine. No answer. Avol mefarshe yom. Now we said avol mefarshe yom v'holchim midbaris kohen kedarkim ba'aba. So they read anybody who's at sea, he's out on a trip through the desert, and knows he's not home. Even if he's a ben krach, he reads on the 14th. Even if he's asid lachzor l'mekayme. Since right now he's not home. Again, this is according to the Carbon Ada, the other pshat too. He would still is mechuyev to read on the 14th, since right now he's not home in the krach. Amar Pinchas, where do we see this from? From the pasuk in the Megillah, it says Al Kain Yehudim Aprozim. Right, it says in the pasuk Al Kain Yehudim Aprozim Yoshim Ba'orei Aprozis. Well, I mean, obviously, if Yehudi, if it's Yehudim Aprozim, obviously where are they living? They're living in the Orei Aprozis. In fact, that we have this double ocean, it means to tell me Pruz Hayibayis Hashah. It means where are you now at this time? And if now at this time you are not in the krach, so therefore you're considered to be a pros for even for that day, and you were laying on the 14th. Okay. Sagt der Mishnah Loch down megen koire yodam es Megillah v'yotz b'dei chavase. What do you have to start reading the Megillah to know to be yotz the chiv of reading the Megillah on Purim? Rabbi Meir Kula. Yeah, Rabbi Meir says you have to read the whole thing. Rabbi Yudah Ish Yehudi can start from Ish Yehudi. Rabbi Yossi Me'achad Dvorim Ha'ela. That's Gidal Melech Es Haman. That's where you start from. Rabbi Avo, who's up to Gemara, Rabbi Avo B'Shem Rabbi Lezer, Manda Makula. Rabbi Meir says Kula. Where does he get it from? Because it says in the pasuk Al Kain Al Kol Divrei Ger. So it says Kol. You have to read all of it. Manda Mish Yehudi Umaro Al Kacha. In other words, why did the whole thing start? It started because the issue Mordechai. Mordechai didn't want to bow down to Haman. Manda Mimachad Dvorim Ha'ela Umo Hagi Aleim. That was what was the result of Mordechai not bowing down. Was Haman started hating Jews. So we start from there. Rab Sim Shem Rabbi Ben Levi says from different psukim, Mandam Akula, B'chol Masa Takva Gvurasa. You have to start B'chol Masa Takva Gvurasa, which is from the beginning to the end. B'chol Masa, everything. Mandam Meish Yehudi Uparshas Gedula Ufarashas Gedulas Mordechai. He gets it from over there. So you have to read about when Mordechai started rising. So we have to read about the history of Mordechai. So you start from over there, from Yeshudi. Asher Gidloi Hamelech, when the Melech was Megal Haman, again focused on Haman. So we have to start when by the relevant psukim that talk about Haman. All right. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Bun, Mishem, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Toikev, Kol Toikev, Es Kol Toikev. The pasuk says Es Kol Toikev. Right? If you look in the pasuk, Es Kol Toikev Gvurasai. So it could have just said Toikev Gvurasai. Why does it have to say Es Kol Toikev? So Toikev Zu Toikev Shel Haman. That's what you have to read. You have to read about Haman. Kol Toikev Zet Toikev Shel Mordechai. So you have to read about Mordechai. Es Kol Toikev Zet Toikev Shel Achishverosh. So you'd have to read the whole Megillah. Okay. Tanur Shemini Yochi he argues and he says, Mi Balayla Hu. Malcolm Shahis Mapalasa Shalom Misham Haisa Gdulasa Shamordech. I have to start from Valayla Hu Nanadash Nasa Melech, because that's where the that's the when the Mapala began, the Mapala Haman's Mapala began, and Mordechai started rising. Okay. Rabbi Yirmiyah B'Shem Rav Halach Rab Meir Dvoma Kul Halach is like Rab Meir because he says Kul everything. You have to read everything, which is obviously what we do today. Zura B'Shem Rab Yochanan Be'erevin V'Tainis Tzibo Nagal Kol Rab Meir. Reb Zura says in the name of Yochanan that by Erevin, we don't just rely on the Erev, you have to do a sheet of Mavois as well, you have to do a sheet of as well, and B'tainis Tziba that we duchin by Mincha and by Nila, that Nagu, Hakol Kremeh. The difference between Nagu and Halach is what you paskin berabin. Nagu is what you do, you don't paskin that. Yerbe'aka ba'acha b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, after Megillah says to Noagu HaKol Reb Meir. That didn't paskin it. It's just the minute that's what people do. But if it's not something that's an outright psak. Reb Chelba Reb Masner Yoisi Bar Menesha Menisa b'shem Rav Ben Command Kula Ben Command Mish Yehudi Ben Command Me'achad Dvarim Be'elu. No, it's whichever sheet you hold, how much you have to read the Megillah. V'vad Mi Sefer Shalom. You have to read it. One thing you don't argue about is you can't have the Megillah starting from there. Now, the written Megillah has to be the whole thing. Reb Chelba Masna Yosi B'Manesha B'Shem Rav Im Hoisek Suva Chumashin. So, in other words, the Megillah was part of like a Chumash today. Okay, in those days it was a scroll, but it was part of the Chumash. No, it wasn't a standalone Megillah. Ain't Kohen Baba Rabbim, because people think just I'm reading. Not going to realize you're reading it for the minig of being fast and the Nes Purim. They'll think you're reading it just because it's like you learned after. Amrab Tanchum Pnei Idiotis, like I just said, that's the reason. From the Idiotis, they're not going to know why reading the Megillah. Ula Biraya, Reb Lezer B'Shem Reb Chanina, Rogel Tzorich Likroisa B'Layla, L'Shnoisa Bayom. Okay, the question is Rogel, you to goris it, you not goris it. Either way, you can fit it in. No, this is somebody who's Rogel, he reads the Megillah, either he's an expert in reading the Megillah, or that should be the minig, is that people should read it at night and then repeat it during the day. So now the L'Shnoisa Bayom could be mashmos also like Mishnah, Mishnais. Having Sabra Mema L'Shnoisa is Mishnasa. So you have to take out, you pull out during the day, Maseches Megillah, and start learning it. Mari Bavlaya L'Shanois Kriyasa. No, it doesn't mean to read the Mishnah, it means a nice thing too, but the chiyuv is to read it a second time during the day like we do today. Ebrechi Rechel Ula Biraya. Reb Lezer B'Shem Reb Chanina, Asa Kodesh Baruch Hu, and this is a famous Sasmachal Tzadikim we have in the Bavli here. The Lashon is different, the Psukim are different. So here it says, Reb Rechia, Reb Chelbe, Ula, Beryoya, Reb Lazar, B'Shem Reb Chanina, Asa Kodesh Baruch Hu, Asis Rosh Choyla, the Tzakim, he's going ahead of a circle. Maybe they say there's a difference between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi over here. It says the head of a circle, the Bavli's Mashma says he's in the middle of the circle. Okay. Lasid Lavoi, Ma Taima, where do we see this from the Pasik? Shisu Lipchem Lechela, Lechoyla it says in the pasuk in Tehillim, it says Shisu Lipchem Lechela, Pasku Amon. So Lechela, the Gemara apparently had some kind of nusach where it says a vav. No, it doesn't say a vav there today, but so Yerushalmi says maybe at one point there was a vav there. So you read it Lechela. Okay. Now tzaddikim maranois be'etzban they point v'omrim, and again the different pasuk over in the Yerushalmi kizeh Elokeinu Elokeinu olam v'od hu yinagenu al mus. And that's who you're pointing, who he or zeh kizeh Elokeinu. You'd say zeh. Fine. And now the Gemara darshans what's al mus. So al mus is balimus, like fleetingly. You see a little bit, you don't see. Al mus is bezrizus. Get up and do. Almus kilein alamos, like these girls that dance. Terigam Akilos is Nasiru. I'm going to just go with the carbonated gear so that this is I guess this Amhara's name over here. Olam she'ein boi mavis. Al mus is that replace the ayin with an al. Al mus. There's no death. So it means we're talking about a world where there's not going to be any death. Tzadikim maranoisa be'etzba v'oimrim kizeh lekim. So the mashmas is like not way, but it's kizeh. The zeh, it's going on the zeh. Elokeinu olam v'ed hu yinagenu al mus. Hu yinagenu ba'olam hazeh. He is the same one that's nayigas that drives us in this world, right? He guides us in this world. Hu yinagenu lasid lave too. Mishpacha. When it says mishpacha in the Megillah, right? So it's it says in the pasuk, "Vayom elas kavan asim b'chol davar mishpacha mishpacha." So what does that mean? So mishpacha mishpacha mikanu mishmos kuna leviyah shiu b'telin. That the mishmos and leviyah, the kuna leviyim, they have to be mevatel stop what they're doing, even the avoda, and listen to Kriyas Megillah. Amar Reb Chelva mikanu beis havad sheibatel. Even the beis medrash has to be batel. So a person has to stop learning and go listen to the Megillah. Shem barba b'shem. Rabbi Yochanan, v'zichron lo Yosef mizaram ikan shekavlo chachamim mesechtes. V'zichron lo Yosef mizaram is that the children not can forget it. How do you not forget? You not forget by learning it. So from here we see that Chazal were kaveya to learn a mesechta. That happens to be a mesechta that we're learning now, Mesechtes Megillah. Okay, wonderful.